Hello and welcome to the Sunday service for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. Our gathered congregation reflects the area along the Florida Panhandle and the Alabama Gulf Coast. However, in today's world, you can join us from anywhere, and we are so pleased to have you with us. I'm Reverend Alice Silty, and it's my honor and pleasure to serve this congregation as minister, a congregation whose mission is to celebrate diversity, strive for justice, and inspire love. Today we will continue with our series on Beguiled by Beauty, a time to celebrate and honor the beauty inherent in all that surrounds us, the world of nature, the world of human beings who are part of nature in all of their diversity as we live out our lives and our values in our communities.
A Spark of Hope by Melanie Davis. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all to thee we raise, this our hymn of grateful praise. Source of all, to thee we raise, this our hymn of grateful praise.
As Laura reminds us in our hymn for the beauty of the earth, we are grateful for the joy of human care and for the kinship we share across all barriers. May these candles reflect the joys and sorrows present among us, whether shared or held in our hearts, unspoken. Please join with me in the words to our church covenant. Love is the spirit of this church and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant with the UUA and with each other, among other things, to use the democratic process within our congregations and in the society at large. Voting and understanding the issues we're voting on are crucial steps in the democratic process. This is an important time, an election year, when we are not only asked to select political leaders, but also to vote on other issues. In Florida, we're asked to vote on the amendments to the Florida Constitution. Our Florida Constitution is the document with which all of our Florida laws have to comply. So it's very important. It should be noted that once something is incorporated in the Constitution, it is extremely difficult to change it. In fact, it takes another amendment to do that. Therefore, in the opinion of the League of Women Voters and others who have studied the issue, it is important to reserve issues that might need adjustment, such as tax laws and tax rates, for actions by the legislature where they can be more easily changed, and not put them in the more rigid body of the Constitution. Another caveat to consider is that many things need the flexibility of local action, which might differ from county to county and municipality to municipality. So with these two things in mind, let's go through the proposed 6 amendments to the Florida Constitution. This year, there are 6 proposed amendments to the Florida Constitution. These will be on your ballot, along with the candidates seeking election, judges seeking retention, and local referendums. This morning, we will primarily be discussing the 6 proposed amendments to the Florida Constitution. The slides I will be using were prepared by the League of Women Voters, which is a respected, nationwide, nonpartisan grassroots organization. Nonpartisan in that it does not support particular candidates or parties. Bear in mind that an amendment requires a 60% supermajority vote in order to pass. Amendment number 1. Now, this amendment changes the wording in the Constitution. Currently, it says, every citizen of the United States who is at least 18 years of age and who is a permanent resident of the state may register and vote. If the amendment is passed, it will say only a citizen of the United States who is at least 18 years of age and who is a permanent resident of the state may register and vote. That is a small change. People who support this say it ensures that only committed citizens of the United States can vote, and that non-citizens are prevented from voting now and in the future. Critics of this amendment say that it is not necessary. Not only is the word change trivial, it is rare for a non-citizen to register to vote. In 2012, a study was done of the 13 million registered persons in Florida. They discovered that 85 were ineligible and that were registered. Okay, who supports this amendment? There is an organization called Florida Citizen Voters. Who opposes it? The League of Women Voters. Amendment number 2. Florida's current minimum wage is $8.56 per hour. If this amendment passes, there will be incremental raises in the minimum wage. Starting in September of 2021, the minimum wage will increase from $8.56 an hour to $10 an hour. Thereafter, it will go up by $1 per hour per year until the wage of $15 per hour is reached. That will be in 2026. Now, $8.50 per hour amounts to $17,800 a year for a full-time worker. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the National Employment Law Project, minimum wage workers tend to be young. They're under the age of 25. They tend to be female, and they tend to be people of color. Now, the Florida Division of Elections estimates that the higher minimum wage for government workers would cost the state and local governments $16 million the first year it goes into effect, and $540 million in 2027 after the final increment has been adjusted. Now, opponents say that increasing the minimum wage will lead to consumer price hikes, and it will result in job cuts because small businesses cannot afford the higher salaries. Supporters of this amendment say that studies show that increasing the minimum wage has little or no detrimental effect on job growth. The current minimum age is not enough for a person to live on. According to the United Way ALICE report, now ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. According to the United Way ALICE report in 2018, 46% of Florida households are having a big struggle just trying to make ends meet. The household survival income for a single adult, not a family, a single adult, is $24,000 a year. Now that is $7,000 per year more than the current minimum wage. The tipped minimum wage is set at the minimum wage minus a fixed tip credit of $3.02 per hour. So it too would rise if we adopt this amendment. A yes vote would gradually raise the minimum wage workers above the poverty level. It would help erase gender and race inequalities, and it would increase economic activity by increasing household spending. A no vote would permit businesses to keep their labor costs down at current levels and avoid potential price increases. It would maintain low-paying jobs for teenagers and for young adults who are just joining the labor market. It would likely continue a wage structure that leads to poverty among younger workers, women, and minorities. Who supports this amendment? You can see from the slide. And who opposes it? You can also see that. Amendment number 3. Amendment 3 would cause a very big change in the primary system. This amendment proposes to replace the current closed primary system for partisan positions such as governor, state cabinets, and the legislature, with a single primary at which all voters could vote on a single nonpartisan primary ballot regardless of their party affiliation. Currently, registered voters vote in their party's primary, with the winner advancing to the general election to face the candidate from the other party. If this constitutional amendment passes, we will adopt what is called a top 2 primary. All the candidates of both parties will be on the ballot, and the two who come out with the largest number of votes for each position will go to the general election, even if they're both of the same party. This would apply to state legislative, gubernatorial, and elected cabinet positions. It does not apply to appointed positions. Nearly 3.4 million registered Florida voters have not selected a party affiliation, which means they currently cannot vote in the primary elections. Florida is only one of 9 states that have closed primaries like this. Supporters say that closed primaries lead to hyper-partisanship and catering to the base. Top 2 primary provider primaries provide voters with access to the broadest slate of more diverse candidates. It possibly would attract more moderate candidates and increase voter participation. Opponents say the top two primaries would make it harder for non-white candidates and minor party candidates to win. With the current makeup of the districts, this amendment would likely lead to suppression of voters and candidates from minority communities within those districts, and it would undo a system set up to prevent political corruption and closed-door dealing. A yes vote would allow the 3.4 registered voters who do not choose a party affiliation to vote. It would lead to fewer minority elected officials, possibly having two candidates from the same party opposing each other in the general election, and potentially it would produce more competitive races with more moderate candidates, and it would require third-party candidates to compete in the primaries. A no vote would continue the current system of closed single-party primaries. It would shut out unaffiliated voters from the primaries. It would retain the ability of voters to choose candidates who more closely align with their racial makeup of the district. It would ensure that candidates align with their political party. Who favors this amendment? You can see from the slide. And who opposes it? Amendment 4. Currently, an amendment to the Constitution has to be approved by a supermajority of 60% of the people who vote in that single election. Amendment 4 would require that future amendments would have to go before the voters in two separate elections, winning at least 60% of the vote each time. Supporters of this amendment say that it would reduce whimsical amendments. Opponents of this amendment say that it would add additional burden to the already expensive and very difficult process for citizens to exercise their right to decide the content of their Constitution by a direct democracy. It would also allow well-funded corporate interests more time to defeat a popular initiative after it had originally passed. A yes vote would lead to a marked reduction in the number of future amendments. It would delay for years the enactment of voter-approved changes. It would add a lot of time and money required for citizen initiatives. Significantly, it would reduce the voters' ability to amend their Constitution. A no vote would retain the current process, requiring 60% approval on a single general election. Who favors this amendment and who opposes it? Amendment number 5. This amendment has to do with the Homestead Exemption Act. It's also called Save Our Homes, as well as Homestead Exemption. When a person buys a new primary residence, that home is valued at the market value for tax purposes. Thereafter, the taxable value cannot go up more than 3% per year. This is the homestead exemption benefit. It limits the taxable increase in value of the home. Transferring this benefit currently must occur within 2 years of purchase of the property. So, if you bought the property in the late months of the year, say October or November, you would essentially have less than 2 years of time to transfer this benefit. If you bought it in November, you would have 1 year plus 2 months instead of 2 years to transfer the benefit. This amendment addresses that by extending the time to 3 years in which you can apply for that benefit. Another aspect of this amendment is that it preempts home rule. Property taxes are levied by local government to pay for local services such as police, schools, garbage collection, street repair, and so forth. Placing restrictions in the Constitution limits the local government's ability to control their budgets and respond to the needs of the community. A vote yes would give the homeowner some extra time to apply for homestead exemption. It would reduce locally collected tax revenue for use locally. It would add a tax law into the Constitution where it would be very difficult to change. If you vote no, you are retaining the 2-year window for applying for the exemption, and you will not impact current level of property revenues for local services. It would leave tax law out of the Constitution, and thus preserving local government's control over their budgets and their ability to respond to local needs. Who supports and who opposes this amendment? Amendment 6, and final. This amendment has to do with a tax discount for the surviving spouses of deceased combat-injured veterans. This amendment would permit the spouse to retain the homestead exemption tax benefit unless he or she remarried or sold the property. This reduces property tax revenue available for school and non-school services, as mentioned before. It limits local government's control over their own budgets. As an aside, the homestead exemption benefits have been improved for veterans 3 times in recent years, each time reducing tax revenues to the local governments. A vote yes here would extend the additional relief to surviving spouses of combat-injured veterans. It would reduce property tax revenues available for schools and non-school services. It would put tax law into the Constitution, where it will be very difficult to alter, and it will limit local government budget control. A no vote continues current policy. It would not impact the current level of property tax revenue available for local services. It would leave property tax law out of the Constitution where it is difficult to change. It would preserve the ability of local government efficiently to respond to current and future needs in their community. Who supports this amendment and who opposes it? Now those are the 6 amendments, with an idea of who supports and who opposes each of them. There is one local referendum on the ballot for residents of Escambia County. It is called Children's Trust of Escambia County. It uses a model which has been quite successful in other counties in the state to provide services for children in a 10-year cycle of funding, rather than depending on short-term grants and the good graces of a donor. I recommend that you look at the presentation by Dr. Kimberly Kruppa, which can be found on the League of Women Voters event page by clicking on YouTube for past events. I also recommend that you look at other forums, the forums for candidates for elected office, that can be found in the same place. Our UUCP newsletter last Thursday, October the 8th, has links for this and other important resources. This slide gives you some of the important dates for this election. It's already too late to register to vote in this November, but the rest of the dates are still upcoming. If you have questions, I hope that you will contact me. I want to thank you. Thank you for your time, your attention to our very important commitment to using democracy. There is much that we can do to make sure that democracy works. Educating yourself is a crucial first step. Next, encourage your friends and your family to do likewise. Then encourage all those people who are registered to vote to vote. Vote early, vote by mail, or vote in person on election day. The choice is yours. Thank you again. And while you're helping to keep our democracy healthy, please also keep yourself and those around you safe and healthy. Shalom.
We are a people together.
Alone Right Now by Karen G. Johnston. Do not be alone right now. Gather together. Gathering together grows courage in ourselves and in others who see the numbers swelling. It is a small thing, but right now it is an important thing. Great sources of wisdom remind us, just because you cannot stem the tide of all hate, it is still right to do the thing that you can do. These things add up. Your one thing and my one thing, his one thing and their one thing and her one thing. Together it becomes a big thing. Do not be alone right now. Any liberation, all liberation, is collective liberation. My freedom is bound with yours, and yours with mine inextricably. Let us together cast our lots, doing this big thing, bending the arc, the moral arc of the universe towards justice.
Our congregation is supported solely by the generosity of members and friends, all the people who want to help us achieve the mission of this congregation. If you are one of those people, then I invite you to pay attention now to the information on how to text and give, as well as the address for the church if you prefer to write a check. Thank you for everything you do to help this congregation thrive.
As We Prepare to Depart by Robin F. Gray. Departure. As we prepare to depart, we give voice to these hopes. May we know ourselves bound in community, even while we are apart. May a passion for justice burn in our lives. May we carry the light of compassion in our hearts and in our interactions. May we be whole in our devotion to truth and always carry the lamp of peace before us.